Institutes of Sweden and will be moderating today. The second thing I would like to say is that my colleague Katarina, who is organizing and in charge of these seminars, will be recording today's meeting. Let's hope that is okay for everyone. If not, please, of course, let us know, and we will edit you out of the video. But with the recording, at least we can show as many people as possible what we are discussing here today. So good morning. I will first talk a little bit just to sketch a bit the context for the FAIR project. For those of you who may not know, the FAIR project started about 1.5 years ago and is about preparing the Kvarken region for an early implementation of electric aviation. The project is increasing the knowledge base about electric aviation within this region, investigating the possibilities and surveying the needs and the required investments to make electric aviation take off in the Kvarken region, quite literally. It is the first step towards a rapid introduction of sustainable aviation in the Kvarken region. The project is owned by the Kvarken Council and managed by Tirains, our great project leaders, Isaac and Andreas. I will provide you with contact information later on. There are 3 work packages. There's the regional effects of electric aviation, in which Umeå University and the University of Vasa are working. There's work package 2, guidelines for implementation, run by Biofuel Region. And then there's the cross-border innovation process run by RISE, which includes these competence network series. For those of you who are a bit maybe less familiar, we've had quite a lot of international turnout on some of these webinars. So I wanted to sketch also a little bit the Kvarken region, which is around the narrowest part of the Gulf of Bothnia. It has a very short distance of 80 kilometers across the strait here, which makes it a particularly interesting place to consider international electric aviation in the short term. And we have regions from the Finnish side and the Swedish side involved, but now also the project is being extended towards the Norwegian side. Lastly, I want to highlight a little bit the financiers and the partners that have been making this project possible. There are many involved, and we're very grateful for that. We have a very strong and solid base of support on both the Finnish and the Swedish side from the public and the private sector, different actors. So we're very grateful and happy for that. And then on to today. So welcome. We have our 5th webinar within the FAIR Competence Network series. And today's topic is around public procurement. And we're very happy to have 3 speakers with us today, 2 from the Swedish side and 1 from the Finnish side, who will discuss a little bit, share their expertise and knowledge of procurement and the status of things today. Our first speaker is Katarina Wigler, Aviation Strategist at the Swedish Transport Administration. Welcome, Katarina. And well, I will just give you the floor because you will tell us a little bit more about the pre-study results of the public procurement on fossil-free flights. The digital floor is yours.
Thank you, Göran. And hello, everybody. See if I can, I'm just gonna go into this messy thing of sharing my screen. I'll try with this one, see what happens. Okay, so now hopefully in a second you will see that what I actually want to show you and not. There you see a red screen, right?
Yes, great.
Perfect, thank you very much. Yes. I will start today by informing you about the results of a feasibility study that the Swedish Transport Administration has been developing, and it's now finished, and we delivered it to the government, which was a mission from them to do in December last year. See if I can change the screen, and yeah. I just thought before I inform you about this mission, I would like to just say something brief about how we look at our tasks as regards electric aviation in the future. And we have tasks regarding long-term infrastructure planning, We have a task that involves the following funding and participation in research and innovation. And for example, we're following the FAIR project, of course, which is really interesting to see where it's going to turn out. We are, which is the reason for us speaking today, responsible for the procurement of air traffic in Sweden, which has bearing on the development of electric aviation, of course. And we are responsible for grants to non-governmental regional airports. And this is an area that might be interesting to look into when airports need to meet the needs that follow from electric aviation. We're also responsible for producing and providing long-term traffic forecasts. And in that work, we have to take in and analyze what electric aviation is going to mean within the transport system in a long-term perspective. And we are also assisting the government in Sweden in the work on applications and projects concerning TEN-T, European TEN-T, and the Connecting Europe Fund, the CEF fund. And that fund is of course of relevance when airports within the TEN-T network must also meet needs coming from electric aviation. So this is sort of how we're coupled into these questions. Also, there is a material produced in different places, and you know this very well in the FAIR project, of course, that concerns where would electric aviation be interesting in the future. And this has nothing to do with the procurement, but because the procurement is relevant where you don't have commercial, where there is no possibility of having commercial air traffic. But Uppsala Universitet and Maurits Andersson has looked into possible routing, and this from the perspective of having an aircraft that can handle 400 kilometers of distance, of course, and whether that would be interesting in the future. So with this perspective, I would like to talk to you now about the results from the feasibility study. And this is a mission that the Swedish Transport Administration had got in 2020, and the mission was to conduct a feasibility study which highlights how procured air traffic can contribute to the goal of reducing climate impact and accessibility throughout the country. And in this sense, with the meaning that not to have the accessibility was supposed to be more or less the same when we looked at these issues. And it included the routes that have currently been procured, and it meant the routes that were procured before the pandemic. So with the pandemic, we had some more temporary routes, as you might know, but they were not within the context of this study. We haven't looked at that traffic. We were to analyze the extent to which use of specifically biofuel and electrification in procured air traffic could contribute to zero greenhouse gas emissions from transport by 2045. So that was sort of the limitation for us. And we were told to take advantage of knowledge and experience on reducing the climate impact of aviation within the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, Naturvårdsverket, the Swedish Energy Agency, Energimyndigheten, and the Swedish Transport Agency, Transportstyrelsen, as well as municipalities and regions concerned. And as regards concerned, we had dialogues with municipalities and regions that have a procured air traffic today. So, which considerations did we have to make? Well, we had to make links to other assignments. We wanted to look into the mission of traffic analysis that had a parallel mission in the same time. And they were to develop knowledge regarding electric aircraft, as you know, and the development of electric aircraft in the future with two different time perspectives. And we also had special dialogues with the Swedish Energy Agency since they had created the innovation cluster Fossil-Free Air Transport 2045 fossila flygtransporter 2045. And we also had initiated dialogues with the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency on their Climate Leap initiative, which had interesting aspects for us to learn more about. We also had to take into consideration the ongoing work that started before the pandemic in 2019 in order to review the air services regulation, which is regulation number 1008/2008, the one that regulates procured air traffic in the European Union. So we wanted to take that in consideration, but as you might know, the work was paused with that regulation. So we didn't really learn anything more on that work during the pandemic or during the mission. However, we know that there is still a need for a review, and it's the intention of the Commission to look into that when they know more about the effects of the pandemic and learn about that and wonder how that affects the regulation. So that it's good to have to take with us in the future work. And we had to make external monitorings, of course, and look into other initiatives that were ongoing. This included some international benchmarking with other countries. We looked into research and innovation projects and activities such as FAIR, Green Flyaway, etc., in order to learn more about their needs and what we could learn from that in the mission. In this work, we asked specific questions to public actors. And the questions were, what are your knowledge and experience on reducing the climate impact of aviation? What is your ongoing work? Is there a need for information? Do you need to have an ongoing dialogue? And what are you doing? Do you have anything other of value you want to tell us in this work? And for the municipalities and regions concerned, we added the questions, what is your knowledge and experience in reducing the climate impact of aviation with regard to procured air traffic, since they have procured air traffic, and we wanted to know how they were thinking in this sense. Do you see any possible measures now, where you stand right now, or do you see any possible measures in a later perspective further on? And do you have any ideas on time aspects in this sense? Sorry about that. And we also asked questions on how to drive, how to motivate, how to start the development in this area to actors in the different kinds of research projects and initiatives. And then we asked specifically, someone has their microphone on, I think. We asked what are the opportunities that can be given from an accessibility perspective with fossil-free aviation, and what are your thoughts on how public procurement can be used to drive technology development and increase accessibility across the country? And we got a lot of different answers, especially from the research sector and actors. We got a lot of good input as regards what could the government do to help in driving the development towards this. Even though this wasn't really the specific mission we had, we really wanted to take that in as well. And this is from the perspective that the procured air traffic in Sweden is quite small, a quite small part of the transport sector as a whole, and in aviation, and also in domestic aviation. So we knew that even if we can do a lot, which we might in the future be able to do more, but even if we did all we could in this area, it would still be a very, very small piece of domestic traveling that would be covered by such effort. So this is why we extended our mission a bit in that sense. And the results from the study were that, yes, the Swedish Transport Administration may, in a shorter time perspective, open the way for weighing of added value in the valuation model for measures to reduce climate impact. Now, we can try to do this, is what you should read here. But it's in fact not covered by the EU regulation. And in that sense, we need to do it sort of as a possible way for those interested in participating in the process to tell us what is possible for them to do. And this is sort of what we work with right now. But we can't have sharp requirements in this sense. And we also saw, of course, given the fact that the EU regulation is very modest, if not looking into climate aspects at all, we should push for changes to the air service regulation that make it possible to impose requirements on measures that reduce climate impact. This is a very important part, and it's something we're looking into also. And we also saw that the Swedish Transport Administration should, when and where possible, that is mostly when the regulation so permits, impose requirements on measures that reduce the climate impact before or in connection with the procurement. And in that context, we need to know that there might also be a need for supporting infrastructure operations and development. That is, we might have to put more measures and money into adapting the airports so they can support the needs of electric aviation. We had an extra delivery on the basis of the dialogue that we had with research parties, and in that sense we could see that the procurement instrument isn't enough to sustain the trend towards conversion. This is a very small part, as I said, of the transport system. And any state action needs to cover the whole of aviation and all traffic in order to be effective. That is all domestic aviation, all international aviation, and hopefully not only on a national basis, but rather on a European or even global basis, in order to, since aviation is an international way of traveling, a way of transport. And that government measures that can be effective in combination with proposed procurement measures could be national investments, more money in the research and development area, different kind of partnerships, maybe on state level or in other ways. Maybe to introduce a premium and premia for electric flights. You know, there is an electric bus premium that has driven development of electric buses in public transport, for instance, to look into that kind of possibilities. And yes, and also to insert different kinds of steering when it concerns government business travel, so that it would be optional or mandatory even for people traveling business traveling in the public sector to drive the development and having to apply to certain rules concerning the climate, for instance. Yeah, that's about it I was going to say. I don't know if you want to take any questions now.
Thank you, Katarina.
Yeah.
I would propose that we try to open the floor for a few questions about your study results, if there are any at this point, before we move on to Bosse. Thank you for the presentation. I think it has been very, very clear in describing the study, the uppdrag, the assignment and the results. And I think it's great that you're also being very clear in the conclusions also towards the limitations of what you have looked at or not looked at. And the complexity is quite clear within this task. So I think it's really good that we try to get those things as clear as possible as we try to all figure out how to move forward with this. So thank you very much for that perspective. Are there any burning questions for Katarina already when it comes to this study or the results of the study?